Well, let's pick up further on the political questions around what the government did last Christmas and what that means for its ability to act with authority now. I'm joined by barrister and former Attorney General Dominic Grieve. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Were you convinced by what the Prime Minister said at PMQs today, that he apologised for the impressions given, but the government maintained their line, there was no party? Do you believe that?
I'm afraid I have no idea what to believe, because the difficulty is that the Prime Minister has shown himself consistently to be a consummate liar. He says there's no breach of the regulations. Actually, he may well be right about that, because the regulations didn't apply, I don't think, to Crown property, and that's in order to enable the government to continue the essential work of the nation during a crisis. It's not to enable the government to flout the spirit of the regulations they impose on others by allowing parties to be held on government premises of a kind that wouldn't be permissible outside. And there's all this slipperiness. Why could his official spokesman not simply confirm that the Prime Minister never attended such a party? He wasn't able to do that this afternoon.
So just to be clear, are you saying that Downing, is it clear that the Downing Street is subject to the rules that said there should not be any party
I
gathering?
am not certain about that, but I think there is an argument that Downing Street may not be subject to those regulations. But you see, if that's the case, then the Prime Minister's answer, there was no breach of the regulations, is a completely mealy-mouthed and misleading statement, because the evidence that there was a party seems to be rather strong. Now, it may be that this is almost peculiar and that the joke being carried out by the staff the following morning was just over a completely fictitious party. But it's not how it comes across, and nor has the Prime Minister, although he denied any such party had taken place, there now seems to be some backpedalling. And all this is suggestive of the chaos that goes on at Downing Street, and which has been consistent ever since this Prime Minister got into office.
Yeah, I think that press conference was about 4 days afterwards, wasn't it? I mean, Dominic Grieve, just to be very, very clear on the rules, because misleading Parliament is a very serious allegation, isn't it, for any Prime Minister to face. If number 10 was exempt from the rules, would Boris Johnson then potentially still have been found to mislead Parliament, even if a party was definitively proven to happen?
Well, I think that if he knew that the party had taken place, or perhaps had attended part of it, then the suggestion he made to Parliament in the way he did it was undoubtedly misleading. Of course it was. But then that's absolutely of a piece with past behaviour by this Prime Minister. And that's why, at the end of the day, it's so difficult to extrapolate where truth lies, because trust is completely broken down. This is a Prime Minister who is a serial liar. And this goes to the very heart of the way government works, because ultimately a great deal has to be taken on trust from government. And when there can be no trust, because the Prime Minister will say anything that happens to come into his head at any moment, which will get him off a temporary hook, how can you trust his utterances on any subject whatever? And the real test for this is for Conservative members of Parliament. Are they going to continue putting up week in, week out, month in and month out with a Prime Minister who is clearly just not fit for office and wriggles around over issues of truth all the time, undermining the authority of Parliament, undermining the authority of government as well?
I mean, we're at a very serious moment, aren't we? Because we're facing another rise in restrictions, in cases. This is you know, the decisions made in Downing Street are literally matters of life and death, as they have been for the last 2 years. Isn't it perhaps better of the Conservative Party, including people like yourself who are on the other side of the Brexit divide, to actually rally round government? Don't government need all the support they can get at the moment?
Government should always be entitled to support from its party members, and particularly from its MPs. But it shouldn't be asking for support for things which are, frankly, unethical. There is no point in supporting a Prime Minister who decides to act unethically over and over again and to tell lies about what he's doing. There is no point in going into the division lobbies tamely like sheep to vote on a government 3-line whip, to try to exonerate a colleague when you yourself think that there's a very strong case against him, and suddenly the Prime Minister decides on a whim that actually he's going to prevent the disciplinary processes of Parliament taking place. And yet this is happening over and over again.
Do you think your former colleagues will act? I mean, we've got another by-election coming up. in the next few days. Do you think there is any possibility of Conservative backbenchers now acting in the way that you suggest?
I have no idea. I was a party member for over 44 years, and I have great faith in the Conservative Party and great affection for it. But watching where this charlatan has been taking it over the 2 years plus that he's been in office is a really painful thing to see. Because forget about Brexit for one moment. It hasn't got much to do with Brexit. It's about to do whether there are any ethics at the heart of government at all, and whether governance is being carried out soundly, and whether government ministers and above all the Prime Minister can be trusted. And the simple fact is that the Prime Minister can't be trusted on anything.
You're making obviously very serious charges, which I know others have echoed, and I'm sure Number 10 would refute all of those. There is going to be an investigation, the Prime Minister says, by Simon Case, the Cabinet Secretary. Is he in a position to carry that out? And do you have faith in that investigation? And what about any police investigation? Do you think either of those inquiries will tell us what we need to know?
I have no idea whether they will. It's clearly sensible to have an investigation in view of the seriousness of the allegations. Yes. And I have no doubt about the integrity of the Cabinet Secretary, so I would hope that they will eventually get to the bottom of it. But of course, all this will take time, and time suits the Prime Minister when he's in a spot of bother. And so one's got also to bear that in mind, because the subject will have moved on, which is usually what he hopes is going to happen before the truth finally catches up with him.
Just finally, what about the staff involved here? Because some say that he's thrown his staff under the bus on this. There'll be senior staff, junior staff. Or do you think they should actually, be thinking about whether they should be even employed by government? Should they still be working at the centre of Downing Street if they were at any of these alleged gatherings?
Well, I think before one starts saying that, one needs to find out what the facts were. And so I think I will park that. What is clear is that this Prime Minister has a remarkable propensity to employ people who he then chucks out of the sledge when the going gets rough and throws to the wolves, which is what he classically did today, with absolutely no responsibility of his own whatsoever. Because one of the questions he might ask himself, even if the basic facts he's given us are correct, which I simply don't know because I don't trust him, but he might just go back and ask himself the question, why is it that in this time of crisis, in the office which I run, staff think it's permissible to do this sort of thing? And the answer is because they see the Prime Minister behaving in exactly the same fashion.
Dominic Grieve, former Conservative MP and Attorney General, thank you very much indeed for your time today.